Hey, I want to be the first to tell you that this season's going to absolutely suck. We're a trash can emoji now, and it's a disaster, and fire Kyle and fire Brock and rethink the whole thing and tear it all down. The Super Bowl window is closed, and it's just a disaster. You know, there's all the anxiety that comes with any NFL weekend. And, you know, if we're not overreacting, we're not reacting at all these days. So there was so much overreaction. And, you know, through all of it, the thing that I kept returning to is, given the circumstances of the offseason, given all the bad vibes that Mike Silver has covered so, you know, dramatically as he's covered this team, given all of the injuries to key players and holdouts and slow starts. And the truth is, had their special teams just paid a little bit more attention, had one or two more field goals turned into red zone touchdowns, 4-4 could have easily been 6-2. But of course, everybody overreacts and will tell you that 4-4 means you're closer to being a sub 500 football team. I think they're much closer to being the team that you remember than this new team that is some bumbling, stumbling, trying to desperately hold its window open. There's a lot of football left. And if Christian McCaffrey is a part of it, Brad, we know what that means for the 49ers. This guy holds the skeleton key of their very best brand of football. And hopefully he's still got it on their key ring, man, because with him, they are something that they're incapable of being without him.
Getting Christian McCaffrey back is just such a shot in the arm for this team. You heard Brock Purdy talk about it just a couple minutes ago at the podium. Just excited to have a guy like that back. And everything that we've heard about, you know, covering Christian McCaffrey is he is the ultimate football player. When you talk about taking care of your body, preparation, everything that you put into the game that maybe you don't see, CMC is just a difference maker. And obviously, that was shown by being the offensive player of the year last season. And when you don't have that guy to start the year, you're trotting out Jordan Mason. You obviously have Brandon Ayuk, who's coming off a holdout, and you're coming off a tumultuous off season. And we understand what happened at the end of the year. There's a lot of stuff kind of piled into one moment. And it was just kind of rocky through the first portion of the year. I have a question for you. Do you feel like things have become more hyperbolic in regards to week in, week out analysis? Because I do agree that there were some concerning things that we were seeing from a trends perspective. What are your thoughts on kind of have you seen like a change in like the trends of how
100%. 100% I have. I've watched fans go from, you know, who would be the last to hold out hope for a really good year, turn into, like, they all think that they're like Skip Bayless or Stephen A. Smith, and they all want to be the very first to marketplace to declare the season over. You know, if you think this season's over in the second half of week 2, you know, you must be new here. Like, there's a lot of football still left. And, you know, you had people just sky is falling analysis after a 1-3 start, which is odd because it feels like just about every single Kyle Shanahan season that has actually gone somewhere has had a little bit of a slow start attached to it. But if we marinate in that, then you can't have all the anxiety and the attention that comes with, hey, I want to be the first to tell you that this season's going to absolutely suck. We're a trash can emoji now, and it's a disaster, and fire Kyle and fire Brock and rethink the whole thing and tear it all down. The Super Bowl window is closed, and it's just a disaster. I thought, like, don't you root for this team? Like, isn't it, if you are a Niner fan, how have they not purchased a little, like, don't panic yet insurance among some of their fan bases? It's really weird, but this is what I'm going to call the disintegration of adults knowing how to talk about sports. And everybody just wants to be the first to pull the fire alarm. Whether there's a fire or not, it doesn't matter, because if I pull this fire alarm, holy shit, we're going to get an awful lot of attention for doing that. So I just want to be the person who does that. And we have an awful lot of people doing that way too early in the year. if there's one singular lesson that I really hope that the Niners can take, because seasons are not related. Whatever happened last year really isn't an indicator of what might happen this year. Hell, we got halves of the same football game that feel like they're not even related. There's so much that can change in momentum of a game, much less week to
100%.
week, right? The 49ers can have 4 different games in the same football game, it feels like at times. And that is a level of inconsistency which drives some people a little nuts at times, but they're truly a very consistent team. And I just think that they are, with Christian McCaffrey, capable of something that is so different than what we've already seen. And, you know, the number one brand of analysis to what is hurting the 49ers is, well, they got wide receivers who can't beat man coverage. They're not as fast as they used to be. Everybody got slow at the same time. It's not that Debo is slow. It's that Debo can be focused on now with really, you know, you're not worried about Jordan Mason popping one off like the way Christian McCaffrey had. McCaffrey is a different brand of attention. Jordan Mason is a good player you need to worry about defending. Christian McCaffrey is the type of player that keeps dudes up at night, you know? So I just think that he is such a force multiplier to everything that the 49ers do. And I'm probably putting too much responsibility on a dude who hasn't played yet with bilateral Achilles tendonitis, whatever the hell that even is. You know, but I really do think that if he is back, and now you're starting to hear, I think, a little truth trickle out, like, oh, he was actually good enough to play against the Dallas Cowboys. They just wanted to buy him a little bit more time, you know, in the name of extra precaution. It sounds like this guy is going to come back with a semi-normal workload to be foisted upon him pretty soon here. This Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if indeed he does go, I feel like it's going to be the first time that we're actually going to see the 49ers in 2024. That's how much of a difference maker I believe Christian McCaffrey is. He is not a important 49er. So let's see.
Absolutely. And I remember, like we do, Damon, we talk about at the trade deadline, oh, who are the players? Obviously, the trade deadline just passed. 49ers didn't make any crazy splash moves or anything. But last year, CMC was the hot name. Like, oh, CMC feels like he would be a great addition. And one of the things that I felt of why he would is because of the gravity. Since CMC joined, obviously you had Debo Samuel in the wide back role and what he was able to do in 2021 and just really explode onto the scene. But there's a level of gravity that defenses just have to pay attention to where CMC is at all times, whether in the passing game, whether in the running game. They are constantly committing to eyes on CMC. And then you start adding Kyle Shanahan's pre-snap motions all across the formation. And that's when I really feel like the 49ers offense is at its best, because they are so worried about getting beat by Kittle, getting beat by CMC, getting beat by Debo. And then you start pulling juice across the formation. And then Juwan Jennings comes across the formation. They're having to shift gaps. And then boom, all of a sudden Kyle hits them with the CMC on a choice route or a Texas route right off the backside of where they just shifted the linebacker out. And then he gets them in this bind. And I feel like that's what's been missing this year is we haven't seen that rhythm. We've seen it at times, but I don't think we've seen it consistently for 60 minutes from this offense. And I really do believe that Christian McCaffrey, just like you said, we're going to see it. We're going to see a much different offense, especially if CMC enters the mix like nothing ever happened. I think he can be a huge catalyst when it comes to getting back to playing complementary football. And to your point, staying on schedule. That's how this team is able to do that. And I think that's a phenomenal point. So I'm really looking forward to. I'm hyped, man. I'm so excited to see
it's used. Brad, it's used as like a defamatory statement to describe the Niners. You know, people call the Niners front runners. Well, as long as you're in front, that's a great thing to be. You know, it's like front running is good. Getting control of a game early, controlling time of possession, controlling down and distance. And when Kyle is in that, he's officially in his bag, as the kids love to say. And that's when they're at their best. That's when they are at their best. All jokes about 10-point leads in big games aside, I just think that he's going to have such an easier time staying on schedule with his ultimate chess piece back to play with. And I can't wait to see it. And then I'm really excited about seeing what kind of complementary player Isaac Guerendo can be. You know, if McCaffrey's in the slot, but you got Guerendo in the backfield, let's see what that looks like. Let's see what Ricky Pearsall looks like with Christian McCaffrey taking a little heat off of him. Let's see what Pearsall looks like with just, hey man, you're Brandon Ayuk now. So you're out here for more plays than anyone could have expected. Let's see what Jacob Cowing becomes. This has been an impressive rookie class. You know, Mustafa, Green continue to play this well on defense. I can really see. Watch how much better the 49ers defense looks if they're scoring touchdowns in the red zone offensively. It's amazing how those will be connected.
I think one of the silver linings from the CMC injury is, like you mentioned, what we've been able to see from Isaac Guerendo and Jordan Mason, where last year, right, it was almost like a point. I don't know, Damon, if you were shouting from the rooftop as well, but I was saying, and I know a lot of others were saying as well, let's see a little bit Jordan Mason. Let's get a little bit of a rotation in. We love CMC and we love when CMC gets the ball, but at the same time,
give him a break.
Keep him fresh.
Give him a break.
That's a lot of wear and tear. And he takes a lot of hits. And now we know what Jordan Mason is. And we are starting to really understand what Isaac Guerendo is. I think every game has gotten better.
This league is difficult, man. And for some running backs, for some wide receivers and players, you know, it takes a while feeling around in a dark room for the switch on the wall. But like once they find it, they flip the switch and it all starts making sense. And it feels like that's starting to happen for Guerendo. If Ricky Pearsall, again, is a quick study, and he felt like he took like a significant step forward from just game 2 from game 1. Mm-hmm. If he continues to take these strides of improvement week in, week out, what have you got 4 weeks from now with Ricky Pearsall? I can't wait to see what that player looks like. You know, Juwan Jennings is going to be thrust into more action. Given how unimpressive Brandon Ayuk was, that's a good thing. Now, I really hope it all works out for Ayuk. Everyone knows what the investment was. Whether you endorsed it or not, it doesn't matter. The Niners have committed a ton of money to a player that absolutely was an important piece and very good. But boy, it wasn't good at all. As a matter of fact, the worst passer rating, I saw this today, Brad, the worst passer rating from a quarterback to a single target with 40 or more attempts in the NFL so far this season was Brock Purdy to Brandon Ayuk, which produced just a 61.4 passer rating. It was a disaster going to Ayuk, trying to activate him. I understand why Shanahan was doing it, but it did no favors to keep this team on schedule. And, you know, they tried to get Brandon Ayuk the practice that he missed in the regular season. The number one lesson that I hope the 49ers take from this year and apply towards future seasons, because, you know, like we were saying, no 2 seasons are really connected, but your philosophy and how you approach your off season, that is something that you can do the same or update year in, year out. I really hope the 49ers put to bed this level of slowly doing business in their contract negotiations with players they know they want to retain. If you got a player that you know you want, i.e. Trent Williams, no gray area there. Ayuk came with gray area due to a young man and Wonderlust, and I like Jaden Daniels and blah, blah, blah. There was no doubt at all that you wanted Trent Williams for this season. Pay him immediately, get him in immediately, and then give him all the vet days off that he needs through training camp, because who gives a shit? But he needs to be there the same way Brandon Ayuk needed to be there in the offseason to avoid the slow start, which gives away early W's that you want to stack so you're not playing. It all matters a lot football in the second half, which the 49ers now have in front of them. They're all out of landing room. They got to be really good from here on out, all out of mulligans. I hope they change it, Brad, because just we're slow to negotiate, and that's just tradition around here. Well, change your tradition. It's not helping. Thanks for watching. Tune into the Damon Bruce Show live on YouTube every weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.